What does it mean to be Korean American? When I was a child growing up in Munster, Indiana, it meant being teased by my classmates, having them stick their fingers in the corners of their eyes to make fun of mine, getting beaten up and being called chink or nip, and then running home to my mom who said, "That's silly, you're Korean." Having friends come over and at the front door saying, "Do you run a shoe store here?" Trying to explain how something that smelled like 된장찌개 was actually edible. Being forced to speak the few words in Korean that my mom tried to teach me for the entertainment of her friends, and then being picked up by the cheeks as they went, "아이고 이쁘다!" Being spanked by my parents and told if I cried they'd hit me harder. When I was a teenager, growing up in Farmington, Michigan in the 70s, it meant being repeatedly threatened by my father, "If you don't marry a Korean, you're dead to me." And being told by my parents that the only measure of success was getting straight A's, which I seldom got. In short, being Korean American meant that I was different and therefore ugly and inferior. I started college with the knowledge that being Korean American was a congenital defect inflicted on me by the Creator. But then something unexpected happened. I needed an easy course, so I took Intro to East Asian Studies. The professor wrote the Chinese character Ren on the board. This was the second canon of Confucianism. It means human-heartedness. It's the quality that separates man from animals. It's the name my father chose for our generation. For the first time, someone explained something to me about being Korean that was relevant and accessible. I hesitantly entertained the possibility that there might be something of value in Korean culture. By the end of the semester, I was hooked. I switched my major from pre-med to East Asian Studies, even though when I told my father, he reacted as if I'd just killed a busload of children. But I needed to know how being different didn't mean I was ugly. After I graduated, I went to Korea for a year. I wanted to go to the source and experience the culture firsthand. 제가 21살 때까지 우리말 다 못했어요. So I learned 한국말 at Yonsei University. I now speak Korean like a 6-year-old missionary with a speech impediment. I taught English to make money, I practiced Taekwondo 6 days a week, and I lived with a wonderful Korean family. After being in Korea, I began to realize that my assumptions about the way things worked were being challenged. My sagobanshik was changing. I learned that spoken Korean is hierarchical, but when I first got to Korea, I was insulting people left and right. I'd say 고맙다 to the doorman, or to the ajumma at the store, 하나 판타 좀 줘, or to a dog, 여기 오십시오. Growing up in America, I thought of everyone as equal. But before I could even open my mouth in Korea, I had to think about the pecking order. Speaking Korean is great as long as you're the senior, but if you're the junior or a child, it can suck. You have to chamo, you have to eat your emotions, which is unhealthy, and nunchi becomes an important survival skill. Thinking as a Korean can make it very difficult to self-advocate or speak truth to power. Growing up as an adult in that system, you have to internalize a lot of unhealthy emotion. These became important things for me to remember when I became a father. After being in Korea, I began to realize that everyone had black hair and brown eyes. In the States, I'd see red, yellow, brown, and in Berkeley, green and purple hair. But in Korea, the norm was homogeneity. I remember telling my Taekwondo sabomnim, who was a few years younger than I, that in college I dated a girl who had red hair, green eyes, and freckles. She was gorgeous. But he reacted, 아이고 징그러워! I began to understand why my parents would feel more comfortable having me marry somebody who was Korean. But it wasn't until many years later that I fully understood why this is important. I was teaching Korean American Studies at San Francisco State, talking to my office mate about the 36-year occupation of Korea by Japan, during which the Japanese tried to eradicate Korean culture and identity. He pointed out that for my parents, having their kids marry other Koreans was a form of resistance, doing what they could to ensure that Korean culture and identity would never disappear. Wow, that made sense. I only wish I had known that sooner. Being Korean American means many other things, but But here's the most important thing. It means having the privilege and the burden of drawing from two diverse cultures to synthesize your life. It demands knowledge and discernment. Most of all, as Korean Americans, we determine what parts of an ancient tradition and a modern superpower will be passed on to our posterity. We need to be informed and intentional about who we are, how we act, and especially how we parent our children. They are our legacy, our hope, and how the very best or the very worst of Korean culture will survive.